Milton Keynes was never meant to be ordinary. Planned in the late 1960s, it was a city built for the future, a place of green corridors and open skies, where movement was effortless and life could breathe. Wide boulevards stretch ahead, framed by trees planted with purpose, guiding you towards spaces of pause and presence. It is a city that asks you to look again, to see not just roads and buildings, but a canvas of ideas. As you walk, the structured lines of the city soften, revealing spaces where people gather, reflect, and create. Spaces like the Milton Keynes Rose.
The people wanted somewhere not to just serve them on one day a year. They wanted something which served them all the year round, somewhere where they could meet, where they could protest, where they could celebrate, where they could commemorate. And so the idea of it being a sort of single-use war memorial or cenotaph moved during that period until the point where we adopted this whole idea of a sort of calendar of dates.
Cities whisper their stories to those who walk them. Some tales are etched in stone, others are felt in the air, in the way people move, pause, linger. Milton Keynes was designed with those pauses in mind, pockets of space for gathering, for marking time. The Milton Keynes Rose is one such place, a circle of quiet permanence, an open invitation.
The brief was to do a cenotaph for the 21st century. Could it be a calendar of remembrance as well as a one-day cenotaph?
Although individual parishes and some of the towns that have been swallowed up by Milton Keynes do have a point for remembrance, Milton Keynes city itself didn't have a point of remembrance. And so the Armistice Day pillar in the Rose became very significant, and I think remains very significant for the life of the city, for the civic life of the city.
And then there was a consultation at Christ the Cornerstone Church. So there are about 25 various groups represented there. And I think that was the point at which we realised that actually we weren't just talking about a civic space to gather for remembrance. We were actually looking for something where people could come at happy or sad times other than purely remembrance. And so the idea and the hunt for a space to do that perhaps took on a slightly less defined way forward.
This needed to be bigger than just somewhere for armistice, where the idea of a perpetual calendar started to evolve, and that we'd do something to mark dates that were important to the people of Milton Keynes.
And Gordon was the person who expanded that thinking when he developed the geometry of the rose and said, actually, you know, we can celebrate one day, but we can celebrate multiple days. And actually this calendar of days that could emerge are those that have got local importance, but also global significance, in the same way as Milton Keynes is local global. We were all immigrants in Milton Keynes because we've come from somewhere, we bring our stories, some of them are hyper-local, some of them are international. And so he felt that the calendar should have that diversity and range of days that are celebrated. And he had a big pianola scroll where he started gathering together important days for Milton Keynes from his many conversations that he had in the community. He started putting them all out in order, in chronological order. And then he also looked at international days that he thought were really interesting and important as well. So some he definitely contributed himself, and he put to the group, say, have you thought about this? Would this be good?
Milton Keynes wears its art in the open. Bronze, steel, concrete, figures rising from pavements, forms twisting through plazas. It is a city that invites you to stop and look, to reconsider the spaces you pass through every day. The Milton Keynes Rose is part of this growing constellation, an artwork in the landscape, not just to be seen, but to be stepped into, to be lived with.
I think from conception, from getting the Cenotaph Trust, which was formed in 2007, to its actual conception and its opening, was about 4 years, I think, something like that, 3 or 4 years. And but of course it's there now, and it's something that Milton Keynes can be proud of. And I personally feel ever so proud when I go down there, just ad hocly during the week and things like that. There's always people down there. There's always somebody wandering around and looking at the different pillars.
The city's character is written in its public spaces. Art that isn't locked away, but out in the world, shaping how people gather, how they pause. Milton Keynes Rose now joins this ongoing dialogue. A new chapter in a city that continues to evolve, always offering new ways to see, to reflect, to connect.
It's incredible in terms of where his design ideas were coming from. So he was looking at mandalas, he was looking at other sacred spaces, he was looking at other memorials. So for instance, the John Lennon Memorial and how that's dressed at various different seasons in the year. And so he set out where his design ideas were coming from. That idea of rose windows and cathedrals then lent itself to the sort of the geometry of those windows, and I think that's where he got to the mathematical outline of a flower, and then the way in which to carry these dates that he wanted to bring people to the space on the pillars.
So everything was kept to the location. So that dictated the thing was circular to start with. Now that's a really strong shape. But as soon as I started the research, I discovered that circular was a strong and powerful shape. Globally, not just in Europe, globally, the power of the circle in sacred architecture in all kinds of societies reoccurs. I thought, well, this could be really useful. If people have shared this all over the planet for centuries in different cultures, there must be something fundamental to do with this shape. I'm not dictating it. Milton Keynes and the previous designers have given me this shape and size.
Gordon did a fantastic job because it's lots of ley lines and all that. So just the pillars themselves, it's all mathematically controlled, and it's something that teachers can bring children along to. And not only can they remember, but they can learn something from it.
Then when we understood a little bit more about the theory behind it, which is actually, it's about the geometry of the rose. It's the nodes at which the petals grow from this central core. It's the passion and place. It's the beauty. And it's very much around the spirituality of how you create ceremony around that geometry and the design. We began to understand where he was going with it.
The Rose was built to be welcoming to all. It's a place for big events, but it's also for the small, everyday moments, the quiet sit-downs, the time out from busy lives. It's a reminder that within this circle of pillars, every story, every moment finds an equal place.
When one visits the Rose, there are always people there who are just passing through and taking time to contemplate, to even search for their own birth date, frankly, on pillars. And that gives them pause to think and stop and just reflect generally. And I think, despite the fact that it's close to such a busy commercial hub, it is very much a peaceful space. The way the pillars sit within the landscape, within a bowl, surrounded by hedges, despite the fact it's pretty often wet and windy, it is actually it lends itself to quiet reflection.
There are no walls here, no gates, no single path in or out, just space. A circle of stone open to all, where every moment finds an equal place, whether planned or spontaneous, solemn or joyful. These pillars do not dictate. They hold space, listening. They rise from the ground like echoes of something ancient, something enduring. A modern Stonehenge, a sundial for memory. Their presence shifts with the light, sharp and defined in the morning, stretching long shadows at dusk. They stand, waiting until someone arrives to give them meaning.
When the Rose was first conceived, there were, 40 pillars that were left blank. And the idea being that every couple of years another one would be engraved with recommendations from the community and led by an independent panel to choose.
Then came the next stage of who got a pillar. And of course, it wasn't about being worthy or not worthy. We kind of made a rule that it had to be part of the history or the making. It had to be an ingredient. That's a good way of looking at it. It had to be an ingredient of Milton Keynes. So Jim Marshall was an ingredient of Milton. Red Bull, the tea bag, the diesel engine, the Ode to the Halibut, Amazing Grace. All these things were ingredients to what made this city full of travellers and vagrants and oddities that decided to stop and settle here.
Every time you go back or every time you see it, there's something different to see and experience.
There's 106 pillars of varying heights, and initially we looked to inscribe 60 pillars, 60 which gave us enough to save for future dedication.
Why?
Because the rose is going to have a long life, and so you want people to continue to engage with it over time. So since those initial 60 engravings that we opened with in 2013, in the ensuing 10 years, we've had a further 9 inscriptions. So we set out to do one every 2 years. So we're quite ahead of schedule, and it will slow down now. It will move to probably once every 5 years that we invite people to give their dedications, their ideas for dedications, their pillar nominations.
I really started to appreciate how this piece was kind of almost pulling together Milton Keynes heritage. There's all kinds of things that people aren't really aware of, like the first tea bag being produced in Bletchley, and diesel engine day, and you know, all those kinds of little bits of Milton Keynes history that people don't think there's history here, but we've got loads. And actually the Rose pulled all that together.
The idea around leaving the pillars vacant, some pillars vacant, was that we wanted the Rose to be relevant in the future. So a lot of the original pillars were backward facing, you know, what's happened in Milton Keynes previously, what's Milton Keynes known for, you know, what are the significant events in the past that have marked Milton Keynes to date. But we didn't want the MK Rose to just be a static thing that was backward looking. We wanted, because we knew that there were going to be significant events in the future that we would want to remember and commemorate. We didn't know what they would be. And you know, and we still don't know what they might be. You know, that's down to the community. It's what's relevant to them. But we wanted to make sure that there was the opportunity to add more pillars so that if something significant did happen, that the opportunity to remember it was there without having to build something else.
Yes, I remember there was quite a lot of discussion about what those pillars should be, but we very much took the advice of Gordon and his team, and he spent he was so diligent. He had some very good people alongside him, and they went round and met communities. He really got under the skin of Milton Keynes and found groups and organisations, and just came up with this wonderful eclectic mix of people and groups and events and things to celebrate and commemorate.
Future generations will be able to adopt the space and put their mark on it. There'll be stuff that we haven't even thought of yet that will be engraved, I'm sure.
Gordon calls it the dance of engagement. It's that thing when people stand with their head to one side and read what's on the pillar, and then the processing of that information and a spark of recognition, or you know, when somebody finds their birthday or they understand something about this space or the heritage of their area that they wouldn't have known had they not been to the space and seen the date and read what the pillar was about.
difficult concept to explain, but once you get somebody physically there, they get it.
One of the reasons I am so passionate about the vision for MK Rose is that it is an act of collective memorising, working in tandem with an artist of creative genius. So here in this place there will be columns with which all of us in one way or another will find an affinity. Opening up the earth in this place, in releasing infinity in a tangible form. A giant act of midwifery for the future. In years to come, people who are not yet born will stand and touch and feel and ask and learn and laugh and maybe cry and dance right here. It is because this is such an important moment that we have a ceremony, a piece of symbolic action, a marker to celebrate and to say this is much more than a passing moment on its way to infinity. We may name the columns, but it will be the future generation who will own them. The releasing of the infinity I speak of is that of imagination and creativity, the coming together of memory, lament and respect, the very stuff that makes us fully human.
April to November 2013. The stones arrived, the ground was prepared, hands shaped and placed each piece, aligning it with care. Through rain and sun, the work continued, each day drawing the circle closer to completion. By the time the final stone settled, the rose had already taken root, not just in the ground, but in the city's story. of November 2013. The cover was drawn away, the rose stood revealed, no longer an idea but a presence. A place ready to receive the footsteps, voices and memories of all who would come.
In the early days, we'd have very small gatherings, very small, as it was gaining its reputation and finding its way and finding, what this space could be used for. And then more lately, it's become a real place of, there's something all the time going on.
A grand design means nothing if it does not hold space for the quiet moments. A lunch break in the sun, a child tracing the carved words with their fingertips, a couple sitting close speaking in murmurs, the wind moving between the stones, carrying stories no one else hears.
I think the space does more than allowing people to come together. It's a springboard for other things. If I think about MK Dad, Disability Awareness Day, certainly back in the very beginning, lots of things happened because of MK Dad.
It's still at the beginning of its journey, but I think people do love it. It's seen as an iconic part of Milton Keynes now. You know, you see lots of imagery of it. You know, so I think it is starting to sort of become part of that cultural fabric of the city.
Nobody owns it. And that's really the rewarding thing about it. Yeah, I occasionally go down to the Rose and sit on the lovely benches at the side, and it's just a joy to watch people. Some people cycle through it, don't even notice it. Some people walk through it and give a glance to the side. Some people stop. Some kids play on it. Some people sit on it. Some people diligently go through every single pillar. Some people go wafting through it, and then their eyes get caught and they stop. And then there's a little chat between the family, and then suddenly they're doing the dance of engagement. And to me, that's the rewarding part of it, that we've actually brought something that's maybe a bit new, maybe a bit different, but it kind of works. And I think that's quite fitting for Milton Keynes, because we were a bit new and a bit different.
And I think it's going to grow in that way. I think it'll become ever more reflective of the community of Milton Keynes, and that's probably what I'm most proud of.
My measure of time, the things that I love, are things that are very old. You know, I'm interested in deep time. I'm interested in artifacts that people made on these islands 18,000 years ago.